John Walker woke up before the sun had even begun to rise. The soft gray light that filtered through the curtains was still faint, and the world outside was quiet and still. But John was already moving, quietly getting ready for the day. His eyes were tired, but his spirit was strong. He was a single father of 5 children, and every day was a new challenge. John was a veteran, someone who had served his country with pride and honor. The military had taught him many things: discipline, strength, and sacrifice. But it had also left him with memories that sometimes made life difficult. He didn't talk much about those memories. Instead, he focused on his children: Emma, Noah, Lily, Sam, and little Grace. They were his world. John knew that every day, he needed to be strong for them. They depended on him for everything: food, clothes, school, and most of all, love. John worked 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet. But money was always tight, and the bills never stopped coming. Some nights, he worried if he would be able to put dinner on the table for his kids. That morning, John quietly went into the small kitchen of their modest home. The house was old, with creaky floors and thin walls. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. He opened the refrigerator carefully, hoping to find something for breakfast. Inside, there were a few eggs, some milk, and a small loaf of bread. Nothing fancy, but enough to make a simple meal. John cracked the eggs gently and started cooking. He smiled softly, thinking about his kids waking up soon. Emma was the oldest at 14. She was responsible and kind, always helping her younger siblings. Noah, 12 years old, was full of energy and loved to draw pictures. Lily and Sam were twins, both 10 years old, curious and always asking questions. And little Grace, only 6, was the light of John's life. Her laughter could brighten the darkest day. One by one, the kids appeared in the kitchen, rubbing their eyes and yawning. Emma poured some milk for everyone, while Noah set the table. Lily and Sam helped by getting napkins and spoons, and Grace hugged her dad's leg with sleepy eyes. John looked at them all, feeling a deep love that was hard to put into words. "Good morning, everyone," he said softly. "Let's eat before school." They sat down around the small wooden table, and John served the eggs and toast on 5 plates. He watched as his children ate quickly, knowing they needed energy for the long day ahead. But when it came time for John to eat, he suddenly felt the weight of an empty stomach. There was very little food left for him. John's heart ached, but he pushed the feeling down. He wanted his kids to have enough, even if it meant he went hungry. "You all eat first," he said, smiling to hide the hunger. "I'll be okay." Emma looked up at him with concern in her eyes. "Dad, you have to eat too," she said softly. John shook his head gently. "I'm fine. You're growing, and you need your strength." They finished breakfast quietly. After school, John would work his second job, cleaning offices late into the night. He didn't complain. For him, being a father meant putting others before himself. The day passed slowly. John dropped the kids off at school and went to his first job at a local warehouse. He moved boxes and loaded trucks, working hard to earn every dollar. His hands were rough and calloused from years of work, but he never let that stop him. At lunchtime, John sat alone on a bench outside the warehouse. He took out a small sandwich he had packed the night before. It was plain, just bread and peanut butter, but it was enough to keep him going. He thought about his kids, wondering what they were doing. He hoped they were happy, safe, and warm. Later, when his shift ended, John rushed home to prepare dinner. The kitchen was still empty, and the cupboards were nearly bare. He looked through the pantry one more time, hoping to find something to make a meal for his family. There was a small bag of rice, a can of beans, and a few frozen vegetables. Not much, but it could be enough if he cooked it carefully. John washed the rice and put it in the pot. The smell of cooking filled the small house, and his children gathered in the kitchen, hungry and tired from their day at school. John served the rice and beans on 6 plates. He watched as each child ate eagerly. Their smiles and laughter were the best reward he could ask for. But when it came to his own plate, John hesitated. There was only a small portion left. John looked at the food and then at his children. He remembered the mornings when he had gone hungry in the military, pushing himself to keep going for the sake of his team. He knew what it meant to sacrifice. Without a word, John pushed his plate aside. "You all eat," he said quietly. "I'll be fine." Emma looked up and whispered, "Dad, please eat something." But John only smiled and said, "I'm okay. I want you all to have enough." That night, after the kids were asleep, John sat in the living room alone. His stomach growled softly, but his heart felt full. He knew he had done the right thing. The love he had for his children was stronger than any hunger. He thought about his wife, who had passed away 2 years ago. She had been the heart of their family, and without her, John had taken on both roles, father and mother. It wasn't easy, but he had no choice. He had to be strong for his kids. John looked at the worn family photos on the wall, their smiles frozen in time, full of hope and happiness. He promised himself that he would keep going, no matter how hard it got. Because his children deserved a better life. As the night grew darker, John stood up and went to his bedroom. He lay down, closing his eyes, hoping for a better tomorrow. A tomorrow where there would be enough food, enough warmth, and enough happiness for all of them. John didn't know what the future held. But one thing was certain: he would always sacrifice for his children. Because that was what being a father meant. The morning sun slowly peeked through the curtains again, but this day was different. John Walker woke up with a tiredness that seemed heavier than before. The hunger from the night before was still in his stomach, a quiet reminder of the sacrifice he had made for his children. Yet, despite his exhaustion, he smiled softly as he heard the faint sounds of his children waking up one by one. Emma was the first to appear, her long hair messy but her eyes bright. She gave John a quick smile, knowing the struggle they all faced but never complaining. Emma had grown up fast, learning to help her father more and more each day. Today, like every day, she helped get the younger kids ready for school. Noah, the energetic boy with a love for drawing, bounded down the stairs soon after, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Lily and Sam, the curious twins, followed closely behind, their faces still sleepy but excited for the day ahead. And little Grace, the youngest, was the last to join them, clutching her favorite stuffed bear tightly. She ran into John's arms with a big hug, filling his heart with warmth, even when his belly was empty. John moved through the morning routine as quietly as he could. He made a simple breakfast with the last bit of bread and eggs they had, careful to save enough for everyone. The children ate quickly, knowing their father had little energy left, but John made sure to smile at each of them, hiding his own hunger. "You'll do great today," John said softly to Emma as she gathered her books. "And remember, if you ever need anything, just ask." Emma nodded, her eyes full of understanding and love. "I will, Dad." After the kids left for school, John took a deep breath and prepared to head to his first job. The small house felt unusually quiet without the noise of his children. He felt a pang of loneliness but pushed it away, focusing instead on the work ahead. He had 2 jobs to do, and he knew there was no time to rest. At the warehouse, John worked harder than ever. Boxes piled high, heavy crates to lift, and endless hours on his feet, it was all part of his daily grind. He barely noticed the fatigue in his muscles or the hunger gnawing inside him. His mind was on his children and the hope that he could make life better for them. During his break, John sat on a bench outside the warehouse. He pulled out the small sandwich he had packed, just peanut butter on bread. It was plain, but it gave him strength. He looked around at the busy world moving past him, people rushing to meetings, talking on phones, and buying coffee. John felt like an invisible part of this world, working hard but unnoticed. Still, John didn't complain. He knew many people had it harder than him. He thought about other veterans he had met, men and women who struggled to find work or a place to live after serving their country. It made John grateful for the roof over his head and the 5 children who loved him. After his shift, John hurried home to start his second job, cleaning offices. It was tiring work, but it paid better and helped cover the bills. The offices were quiet when he arrived, the only sound the soft hum of computers and the distant ringing of phones. John worked quickly, wiping desks, emptying trash cans, and vacuuming carpets. He imagined the office workers coming in the next morning, sitting at their desks, unaware of the man who had cleaned their space. When he finished, it was late, and John was exhausted. He looked forward to seeing his children, to hearing their laughter, and sharing a simple meal together. But when he entered the kitchen, he saw the empty cupboards again. The food they had was almost gone. John's heart sank. He opened the fridge carefully, hoping for a miracle, but found only a few cans of beans and some leftover rice. He knew he had to make these stretch for the night's dinner. John cooked slowly, making the best meal he could from the small supplies. The rice smelled good as it simmered, and the beans looked warm and comforting. When he called the children to eat, their faces lit up with gratitude, even though the meal was simple. As they sat down, Emma looked at her father with concern. "Dad, you haven't eaten much today." John shook his head gently. "I'm okay," he said. "You all need to eat more than I do." But this time, as the children ate, John felt the hunger inside him growing stronger. He watched as they laughed and shared stories about their day at school. Noah talked about a new drawing he was working on, and Lily and Sam told jokes that made everyone smile. Grace, small and full of energy, made silly faces that had John laughing. Even though John was hungry, seeing his children happy made the hunger easier to bear. But deep inside, he knew this could not continue forever. The weight of responsibility was heavy, and John felt the burden pressing down on him more than ever. After dinner, John helped the kids with their homework and prepared their backpacks for the next day. He kissed each of them goodnight, feeling a mixture of pride and worry. They were growing up fast, and John wanted to give them everything they deserved. When the house was quiet again, John sat alone in the living room. The hunger returned, stronger than before. He looked at the empty plate on the table, his own meal left untouched once more. He was tired, so very tired, but his love for his children gave him the strength to keep going. John thought about the future. What kind of life could he give his kids? Would they ever know what it meant to be free from worry? Would they have chances he never had? These questions weighed on him, but he refused to give up. Then, just as he was about to stand up and rest, there was a soft knock at the door. John's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't expecting anyone. He wondered who it could be at this late hour. Cautiously, John opened the door. Standing there was a woman, dressed neatly and with a warm smile. She looked confident and kind. "Hello, John," she said. "My name is Eleanor. I've heard about you and your family." John blinked in surprise. "You have?" Eleanor nodded. "Yes. I want to talk to you. It's important." John invited her inside, curiosity and a bit of hope growing in his heart. For the first time in a long while, he felt like maybe, just maybe, things could change. John Walker stood quietly in his small living room, still a little surprised by the unexpected visitor. Eleanor smiled warmly, her eyes kind and full of purpose. She had a presence that made John feel safe, even though he had never met her before. "I know things have been hard for you," Eleanor said softly, sitting down on the worn-out couch. "I've been following your story for a while now." John looked at her, confused but curious. "My story?" Eleanor nodded. "Yes. The story of a father who loves his children so much that he sacrifices everything for them. I've seen how hard you work, how you put your kids first, even when you don't have much." John felt a rush of emotion. It was strange to hear someone outside his family talk about him like that. Usually, he kept his struggles private. But Eleanor's words made him feel understood. "Why are you here?" John asked quietly. Eleanor took a deep breath. "I want to help you. And not just you, but other families like yours, families where the parents give everything they have but still struggle. I believe we can make a difference." John was surprised. "How?" Eleanor smiled. "I run a foundation that supports veterans and their families. We offer scholarships for education, financial help, and programs to give parents better opportunities. And I want you to be part of this." John's mind raced. He had never imagined that someone like Eleanor, a successful businesswoman, would reach out to him personally. For years, he had tried to carry the weight alone, feeling invisible in the world. Now, someone was offering him a chance to change everything. "Are you sure?" John asked, still doubtful. "I don't want charity. I just want to do what's best for my kids." Eleanor nodded. "This isn't charity. It's a partnership. You know the struggles better than anyone. Your story can help others, and together, we can build a better future." John thought about his children, Emma, with her bright smile and quiet strength, Noah, who dreamed of becoming an artist, Lily and Sam, always full of questions and wonder, and little Grace, whose laughter filled the house with joy. What would it mean if he could give them more than just survival? He felt tears welling up, but he blinked them away. "What do I need to do?" "Just trust me," Eleanor said gently. "I'll explain everything." Over the next hour, Eleanor told John about the foundation's work. They helped veterans find jobs, supported families with financial aid, and provided scholarships for children's education. They also created programs for single parents, giving them resources and a community to lean on. John listened closely, feeling hope grow inside him. This was more than he had dared to dream. He had spent so many nights worried about money, food, and bills. Now, someone was offering him a hand. Eleanor smiled again. "Tomorrow, I want to visit your children's school. We'll talk to the teachers and see how we can support Emma, Noah, Lily, Sam, and Grace. You don't have to do this alone." John nodded slowly, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you," he said simply. Eleanor stood up. "One more thing, this is just the beginning. Together, We'll make sure your family and many others can thrive, not just survive." That night, John could barely sleep. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to hope. Hope that his children would have a better future. Hope that he would not have to carry the burden alone. The next morning, Eleanor arrived early. She greeted the children warmly, asking their names and listening as they talked about school and their dreams. Emma spoke confidently about her plans to study nursing. Noah showed her a sketch he had drawn. Lily and Sam shared stories about their favorite books, and little Grace giggled as Eleanor made funny faces. John watched quietly, amazed at how easily Eleanor connected with his children. He felt grateful beyond words. Later, Eleanor met with the school principal and teachers. She explained the foundation's mission and asked how they could best help the children succeed. The school staff were impressed and eager to support the Walker family. Back at home, John felt a new kind of strength. Eleanor's visit had brought a light into their lives. He knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but now he was not walking it alone. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor helped John apply for financial aid and scholarships. She introduced him to other veterans and single parents who shared their stories and support. John began to feel part of a community again. One afternoon, as John helped Noah with his art homework, he realized something had changed inside him. The fear and worry were still there, but they were no longer overwhelming. There was hope, and that hope was powerful. John looked at his children and smiled. "We're going to be okay," he said softly. Emma, sitting nearby, looked up and nodded. "We already are, Dad." John's heart swelled with pride. He had fought many battles in his life, but the greatest battle was still being won every day in the love and strength of his family. And with Eleanor's help, John knew that the future held new possibilities for a better life, for dreams fulfilled, and for a family that would never give up. With Eleanor's help, life began to change for John Walker and his family. The days of struggling alone seemed to slowly fade, replaced by a quiet hope that grew with each passing moment. But even as new opportunities opened, John never forgot where he had come from, or the sacrifices he had made. The morning after Eleanor's visit to the school, John woke up feeling lighter. The house still looked the same, small, worn, and full of memories, but inside, something was different. The heavy burden he had carried for so long was not gone, but it was no longer crushing him. John prepared breakfast with care, using the extra groceries Eleanor had brought. The children sat at the table, their faces bright with curiosity. Emma, the eldest, was the first to speak. "Dad, I can't believe how much help we're getting." John smiled. "It's more than help, Emma. It's a chance." Noah nodded, his eyes shining. "Maybe now I can take art classes after school." Lily and Sam exchanged excited looks. "And we can join the library program," Lily said. "There are so many books we can read." Little Grace clapped her hands. "I want to learn too." John looked at each of them and felt a surge of pride. Their dreams were starting to seem real, not just wishes whispered in the dark. Eleanor had promised to support their education, but more than that, she had given them hope, a gift far more valuable. As the days went on, Eleanor visited often. She worked with John and the children, helping with schoolwork, organizing events, and connecting the family to resources they had never known existed. John's life was still busy, with his 2 jobs and caring for his kids, but the weight was lighter. One afternoon, Eleanor invited John to a meeting at her foundation. He was nervous at first, used to being on the outside, not in the center of attention. But Eleanor encouraged him. John, you have experience no one else here has. You know what veterans and single parents go through. Your voice matters. At the meeting, John met others who had faced similar struggles, men and women who had served their country and now worked to rebuild their lives. They shared stories, laughed, and sometimes cried together. John realized he was not alone. Eleanor announced plans to start a new program specifically for veteran families, with John as an important advisor. They wanted to create jobs, provide counseling, and build a community where no one felt forgotten. John felt honored and determined. This was more than a job, it was a mission. A way to give back and help others find the hope he had found. Back at home, the children were thriving. Emma earned praise from her teachers and dreamed of becoming a nurse. Noah's art was displayed in local galleries, and he had even won a small competition. Lily and Sam discovered new talents and interests, and Grace's laughter filled every corner of the house. John watched them grow and knew that their future was brighter because of the sacrifices he had made and the kindness of someone who believed in them. One evening, after dinner, John sat with Eleanor on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky with warm colors. The quiet was peaceful, a sharp contrast to the noise of the past. "You've done an amazing job, John," Eleanor said softly. "Your family is incredible." John looked at her and smiled. "We couldn't have done it without you." Eleanor shook her head. "You did this. I just helped open a door. You stepped through it." John nodded, feeling a deep gratitude. "I want to keep helping others like me. I want to make sure no family has to struggle like we did." Eleanor's eyes shone with respect. "And you will. Together, we can." As the stars appeared in the night sky, John felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. His family was safe, their dreams alive, and a new chapter was beginning. John knew the road ahead would still have challenges. Life would not always be easy, and sacrifices would still be needed. But now, he was not alone. He had a community, a purpose, and a family that would never give up. And in that quiet moment, with the world stretching out before him, John Walker smiled, ready to face whatever came next. The months that followed were filled with changes, both big and small. For John Walker and his family, the world was no longer a place of endless struggle but a place where hope was real and dreams were beginning to take shape. John's days were still full of hard work, but now his efforts were supported by a community that believed in him. Eleanor's foundation had opened doors to new opportunities, jobs, education, and friendship. But more than anything, John felt a new strength inside himself, a belief that he could provide a better life for his children. Emma, now 15, was closer than ever to her dream of becoming a nurse. With the foundation's support, she was enrolled in after-school classes that prepared her for college. She studied late into the night, determined to succeed. John often found her at the kitchen table, her books spread out before her, her brow furrowed in concentration. "No matter how hard it gets," Emma said one evening, looking up at her father, "I'm going to keep going. For you and Mom." John's heart ached and swelled with pride. "You're going to make us all proud, Emma." "I know it." Noah, now 13, had blossomed as an artist. His drawings, once just simple sketches in his notebooks, were now framed and displayed at community centers and art shows. His confidence grew with every new painting, and John made sure to encourage every creative spark. One afternoon, John visited an art gallery to see Noah's latest work, a painting of a family standing together, hands held tightly. The colors were bright and full of life, and John saw the love and hope Noah had poured into the picture. "That's us, Noah said quietly, standing beside his father. John smiled, tears welling in his eyes. It's perfect. Lily and Sam, now 11, were growing in their own ways. Lily had discovered a passion for science, always asking questions and dreaming of becoming a doctor like Emma. Sam loved sports and was playing on a local soccer team. Both twins were doing well in school and enjoyed the new programs Eleanor's foundation offered. Little Grace, now 7, was full of energy and laughter. She loved school, her friends, and the stories her father told her before bed. Grace's happy spirit reminded John every day of why he kept fighting. One evening, as John tucked Grace into bed, she looked up at him with wide eyes. "Daddy, will I ever be as strong as you?" John smiled softly. "You're already stronger than you know, Grace. And you will be even stronger tomorrow." Despite the progress, John never forgot the sacrifices it had taken to get here. There were days when the memories of hunger and struggle returned, but now they were reminders of how far they had come. The love and hard work of a single father had changed their lives. One Saturday morning, the foundation held a celebration for all the families it had helped. John and his children attended, surrounded by new friends and supporters. Eleanor spoke about the importance of community and the power of hope. When it was John's turn to speak, he stepped to the front nervously. Looking out at the crowd, he saw faces filled with kindness and understanding. He took a deep breath. "I never thought I would stand here today," John said. "For a long time, I felt like I was alone, struggling just to keep my family alive. But with help, and with my children's strength, I found hope." John's voice grew stronger as he continued. "To all the fathers, mothers, and families out there, don't give up. No matter how hard it gets, love and hope can change everything. My children are my reason for fighting, and now, thanks to this community, we have a future to look forward to." The crowd applauded, and John felt a warmth he had never known before. Eleanor smiled proudly from the side, knowing that John's story was now inspiring others. Later that day, as John and his children walked home, the sun setting behind them, he felt a deep sense of peace. The road had been long and difficult, but it had led them here to a place where dreams were no longer distant but within reach. John looked at each of his children and said, "We did it. Together." Emma, Noah, Lily, Sam, and Grace smiled back, their eyes shining with hope and love. They were a family bound not just by blood, but by strength, sacrifice, and the promise of a better tomorrow. John knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they always had together. And in that moment, with his family by his side and a new future ahead, John Walker's heart was full.